or buenos dias. Those are the three things that I said the most this week was buenos dias, buenas tardes, and buenas noches. So good afternoon and good night. So first off, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who's been praying, especially those that prayed for the bed bugs, because I was getting pretty scared about those. But all was well, and then a big thank you for the people that supported us financially, because it means a lot to me and Dad, and that we couldn't have done it without that, but especially the prayers. So I have just a couple pictures that I want to show of things that I saw, things that I learned and did, since I'm normally not here. A lot of this you'll hear next week, but just from me. So the first thing right off the bat that I learned is that we have to trust in the Lord. I don't know if y'all have ever ridden with a Peruvian before, but they drive like nobody's business. So they have 4 lanes of traffic right off the airport that they turn into 7 lanes of traffic with about an inch in between each car, horns blaring. Our eyes are closed. We're just how to trust that the Lord was going to get us to point A to point B safely. Not to mention there's bicycles, motorcycles just riding in between these little inch spaces that you could just reach out and just touch them. So that was crazy, crazy moment getting off the airport. So after the city, we stayed the night there. We had an 8-hour drive up the mountain. So we went about 10,000 feet up to where we were staying. So these pictures right here, you can kind of see the roads, but that just shows you how small the road was. It was about the size of the aisle right here with a drop off on one side and the mountain on the other side with about a foot to spare. So that was another trust in God moment that we weren't going to fly off the side of the mountain. Also, they had these little hairpin turns. We would turn and he'd have to back up so he could turn and go this way. We get to the next one, he has to back up and turn so we could keep on going up. So that was incredible, incredibly scary, incredibly beautiful. I think I was in awe, the majority of the time. So that's about where we were at on the roads. So the first night we started off with a couple of hurdles. We get to the hostel that we were staying at. I ran up the stairs. I almost fell out because I didn't quite realize what the oxygen was going to do to me up there with the 10,000 feet of altitude. So when we got up there, we realized that we had no hot water, we had no AC, and we had no heat. And y'all may be wondering why I said we have no heat. It was 43 degrees at night. So it was also 43 degrees inside of the hostel. So we were all bundled up with layers. I finally found the perfect formula to, that's our hostel right there where we were staying. But I finally found the perfect formula of how many layers I needed to wear and how many blankets I needed to have on to be comfortable at night. So that also worked out. There was also no lights in some of the rooms. The bathrooms had no lights, had no toilet seats. So needless to say, we were a little frazzled when we got there, but we were already trusting in God, so we were already one step ahead of the program there. So that's how we started off the trip, but we went uphill literally. We traveled to 5 different villages: Cochas, where we stayed, San Joaquin, Maluran, Huanyuc, and Quinches. This is all ranging from about 9,000 feet to 11,000 feet up. In the mornings, we would provide medical care into the schools. Also, we're doing Bible study classes. And then in the afternoons, we would do medical clinics in the plazas and worship services when everybody got home from the fields. So here's me doing some vital signs with my translator, William, who was great. So that's in the school, and the second one is in the plazas in the evening. We treated mainly pain. We had some antibiotics, but it was mainly a lot of pain medicines, some ear infections, stomach bugs. But we did the best we could, so it was great. So I have 2 or 3 stories that I kind of want to point out, and there's countless stories, but I'll just stick on these 3, and you'll hear more from Dad next week. You can go to the next slide. So this is my buddy Christian. This is my sweet little man Christian. He was 8 years old. He lived in the village of Quinches, and he wanted to be a doctor one day. So I don't want to be a doctor, I'm a nurse, but it really touched my heart. So unfortunately, he had a leg deformity that you can't see in the picture, but it has to be amputated when he gets older, probably about 16, they said. And he had a pec chest, which wasn't causing any issues now, and you can't really see in the picture, but it was pointed pretty badly, and it was probably going to cause some cardiac and respiratory issues in the future. So please keep in your prayers, sweet Christian. I was able to teach him all the nursing knowledge that I knew. He basically did my whole job for me that night. He did the vital signs, he took blood pressures, he wrote everything down. he was listening to people's hearts and lungs. It was really sweet. It was just one of those precious moments that I'll never forget, and hopefully he'll never forget. He sat with me the whole time during worship that night, so it was a sweet moment. All right, you can go to the next slide. So this picture I just thought was too sweet, so I had to put it in there. But there was another little girl in the village of Yauyos. I didn't get a picture with her, and I can't remember her name. But she was 17, she had just graduated, and she wanted to go to med school. So I also got to teach her all the things that I know about being a nurse, which was really sweet. And one thing that stuck out to me is that she had never seen a stethoscope before. She didn't know what it was. And so I showed her where the heart was because she was trying to put it on this side. I said, no, it's on this side. And so she got to listen to it, and she heard a heartbeat for the first time. She heard my heartbeat. And her face just lit up. It was so bright. And it doesn't sound like a huge deal to us, but these people have never heard a heartbeat before, have never heard a lung sounds before. And that's something that, we hear on social media or wherever we hear it, we know what it sounds like. So it's just one of those sweet moments that I'll never forget. Made me forget that I didn't have hot water back home. I won't even mention how many showers we did or did not take. So you can move on to the next slide real quick. So my almost last thing that I'm going to share, this is not the home we got to go into, but it just kind of shows you what many of the homes were like. Most of them had dirt floors, were just held up by tin or plywood or whatever they could find. So we were out in the plaza doing some medical work, and this lady came up to us, and she had invited us into her home to see her mother, who was not doing well. And I learned that in Peru, it's a big deal if you're invited into somebody's home. That's not normal, especially somebody who's living in poverty. They're not going to invite you in. So we knew that it must be really bad if they wanted the doctor to come in and see her. So we walked into this little house. The doors are only about 5 foot tall. So we're bending down trying to get in everywhere. And we walk into this big dead chicken that was hanging in the living room. But it was so dead, it didn't stink anymore, so it's all good. So we walk in where she was laying. There was a little room to the side. It had about 6 beds in it, and a bunch of just all their stuff was in that room. And she was laying there just sunken in the bed. It was a really sad sight. So we checked her out. She had a really high fever. She was in pain pretty much about everywhere. She probably had pneumonia, and she was probably septic, so we knew that she wasn't going to live much longer. And her daughter was there, and another man was there. I forget if it was the brother or not, but so we checked all of them out as well, but we were able to have a special moment with them and pray over them and pray over her, even though they had all these pictures of Catholic saints everywhere in the room and candles. It was a sweet moment that we were able to share the gospel in a really sad time. And it's also one of those times for us, it's we can only do so much, but we just have to trust in the Lord's will that we've planted the seed and that the seed would continue to grow before she passed on. All right, you can move on to the next slide. So the last thing that I'll leave you with is the verse that I was reflecting on this week. It came from 2 Corinthians 4:7, where it talks about treasures in the jars of clay. And I had actually seen this on TikTok or Instagram or something a couple weeks prior, but I had been reflecting on it throughout the week. So I reflect on the first part of the verse where it talks about the treasure in the jar, and that the Lord never asks us to be the source. He's always the source, and he's going to be that everlasting source. He just asks us to be the vessel that he's able to use and be molded. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I learned this past couple weeks, is that he's going to use me, and he's going to be able to pour out through me in ways that I don't even realize until I get back home and I look back on it. And so I just learned that if I let go of my own fears and anxieties and trust him, that he's always going to be that everlasting source inside of me. So I was able to take that back home and realize that I'm that vessel in my school, in my church. So yeah, that's about it, but I have a couple more pictures that I just couldn't help but show. So this was at the, So that's at one of the schools in Yauyos. I was just doing some checks with the little girls. And it's such a joy to be able to teach them these things, because they've never heard of a pulse ox or a blood pressure cuff. So the kids would sit there and giggle the whole time they were getting their arm pumped up. This other picture, the previous team before us, they had put in water filtration systems, which they don't have clean water there. So this was a big deal for them. But they had to be cleaned and changed out. So we were showing some of the locals how to change them out so they could always have fresh water. All right, you can go to the next slide. So that's me and a little girl from San Joaquin. Her mom had some pretty severe diabetes, so she was getting checked out, and I was babysitting at this point. But it was super sweet. Played with her the whole time for probably like an hour. And then another really cool thing that we got to do that I don't think we expected is the other church that we were with, they brought like 250 pairs of reading glasses. So we were able to do eye exams for near vision. We couldn't do anything about far vision, but we had reading glasses. So we had been doing these exams for I think like 2 days, giving out reading glasses, and then somebody mentioned at dinner, they were like, why aren't we having them, like, because we were having them read like the eye chart or whatever. We're like, why don't we have them read the Bible and like we can integrate the gospel into doing these eye exams. So we started letting people, once they got the glasses that fit them, read the Bible, which was really special. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks again for all the prayers.